Today, we're going to talk about automating the beginning of discovery calls to make them more efficient. I'm going to save you about half the time of your call so that you can get down to making money instead of wasting time. And that's what we're talking today on Black Ram TV's podcast, Gaining Ground. My name is Daniela Sagia. I am Chief Strategist and Creative Director of Black Ram Media Group, Inc. And thank you for joining us today. Discovery calls. I have to do so many of them. As a matter of fact, I have to do so many of them. I started a private little research thing where I started timing how these calls go so that I could learn about how badly or why they waste the time that they do when this specific type of call is actually meant to make you money instead of wasting money. So let's talk about that. So first of all, discovery call. That's when two companies who have never worked together before decide that maybe there's something they can collaborate on. It's usually writing a grant proposal together or applying for an RFP, or maybe it's a business deal and a third party is introducing these two people or these two entities together. And the idea is on this call that you're going to schedule an hour and dig in and see what maybe you guys can do together. And especially when there's a third party that's doing the introduction, well, now there's a little bit more time that's wasted in the early parts of the call. So let's talk about the early parts. This is how it usually goes down. So everybody waits, the 5 minutes for everybody to log on and figure out how to not hit, mute or whatever, or get themselves off mute or get their video going. So, and then the small talk as you're waiting for everybody to log in. That usually is mind-numbing waste of time, but you can't really get around that part. Now you have everybody on the call. Here's the problem. Now you've got, 3 people from the company making the introduction, and now you've got 4 or 5 people sometimes for each individual entity. So maybe you've got 8 to 10 people on that call. And we're going to go around and we're each going to introduce ourselves, even though, you're not going to remember the person's name in 5 seconds or their title, right? Right? All that information that you need is somewhere on an email and you'll get to it later when you need it. Or you already know who these people are, or because you wouldn't have been on the call otherwise, right? So it's one of those two scenarios. So either way, right now, you don't need to know the person's name. And having them read off their business card when you have 8 other people that are going to do the same, especially if you get 2 that are long-winded. Well, I discovered this company one day after I lost my, Jesus, just move on. So there's a whole bunch of time wasted there. And then come the introductions of the companies. So now you've talked about all the people in the company. Now you got to talk about the company, right? And this part really matters because, especially if you're making a pitch where you need to convince the other company that you're the way to go, here's your moment, right? So what happens? You spend 5 minutes trying to figure out how to share your screen to open this PowerPoint presentation usually. And you go through this boring deck. The information in it, very important. I'm not diminishing the information being shared, but the presentation of these decks are usually incredibly dull and not efficient because, when you're off the top of your head or reading off a PowerPoint, we've been in business since 2016. Our main product is this, and blah, 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 and our mission statement is that. Boring. And you can't get it out quickly without sounding like you're rushing through it. So most people, as they're going through their introductory deck, take too long on each slide. And I have one client, for example, their business is so fulsome, there's really no way for them to condense all the information they have to present when somebody is presenting it, like in a PowerPoint. So, they'll say, do you want to do like a 1 minute? This is how it always starts. Do you want to do a 1 minute introduction on your business? And that turns into a 15-minute slide deck presentation. But remember, you're doing it, the other party's doing it, and if you have a third party making the introduction, they've done it too. So now you've wasted 15 to 45 minutes, depending how many people are on this call, with your company decks, right? Everybody's bored. Half of the people already knew all the information in the decks because the stuff is usually found on your website anyway, if you've done enough research, right? Or anybody could easily see the stuff on their website, so you're wasting their time repeating it to them. Your website and everything in there is the reason they're on this call in the first place. So you just sitting there repeating everything, big waste of time. And here's why it's important that we acknowledge why this is a big deal, wasting this time. Discovery calls are important because they are the beginning of the make or break a relationship that can be incredibly fruitful. And in business, every moment counts. And these discovery calls are normally scheduled for about 45 minutes to an hour. And what happens is when you get to the, only 15 minutes left mark, it doesn't matter how great the conversation's going. It's like, oh, guys, I have another meeting I need to get to because people are busy. And so we're going to have to reschedule this call for next week, right? So if you figure you're only going to have an hour in front of this company you really want to make this deal with, do you really want to spend the first half of it regurgitating shit that you already know that they already know? You know what I mean? So I did something for one of my clients was I took his usually very long pitch deck and I put it through a video editor and I made it into a really powerful video. I got all the information in that it takes him 15 minutes to say on his own, and I got it delivered in a far more compelling way, in a very beautiful way, because it was wonderfully executed. Thank you, Black Ram Media Group. And I gave it to him, and it was 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So I was able to get out in 2 minutes and 40 seconds what takes him over 15 minutes to present. So if you can imagine future calls, when they get on that call and say, hi, before we go through the introductions, I'm just going to play this little video because the key members on our team on this call today are actually in this video. We're just going to expedite the conversation a little bit. So just bear with me while I press play, and this will give you an introduction as to who we are and what we do. And bang, 2 minutes and 48 seconds of brilliant presentation. You will never be able to present it in such an entertaining way as, these video productions are. So people are already blown away. So you've presented stellar media with amazing information in a concise and exciting way, and now they're ready to, roll. And they're going to be impressed by you, which is the whole point of this exercise anyway. So now, if they were to have their deck done the same way, so imagine if this becomes a trend, right? So now, instead of all the bullshit in the beginning, you're going to get on the call, you press play, there's 3 minutes, they press play, there's 3 minutes. Now you've only wasted 6 minutes. And at the 6 minute mark, you can start talking business. Now you have, 50 minutes, almost an hour, to sit there and dig through what you might do together. And believe me, you can get a lot done in an hour if you have, if you're being very diligent with your time and not wasting your time. Like what I love people on a call that will say, I love where this part of the conversation is going. Why don't we shelf that until we're in production mode? Let's not get into the weeds. Let's move on to the next part of our agenda. I love people that are efficient in how they manage their time in a meeting. Because so many times in a meeting, we will get distracted by, for example, we're going to do this campaign together, right? So now we're going to talk about, who's going to split what percentage. These are the important things, how the money is going to work, whatever. And instead, the conversation goes, wouldn't it be great if we use a lot of the color pink? Okay, let's shelve that. That's for when we're in production of this project. We'll talk about that part later. Let's get back to the negotiating now. So when you're able to digitize parts of your presentation that would normally lead to distraction, that's going to save you a lot of money and wasted time. Because if you're looking at a deal that could bring in millions of dollars of revenue, right, would you rather do it now or next week? So the problem is that if you're wasting relationship building, it's good to have these. No one's building relationships on Zoom in a quick introduction. And it's too quick for you to bond when you're delivering it yourself, right? And because it's just a one-way conversation when you're presenting or explaining who you are or whatever. So it's a one-way conversation. So that's not relationship building. That's just you showing who you are in a very inefficient way. But it's not actually building anything, right? The building comes when you guys are negotiating the details of whatever this deal is or whatever this potential opportunity is. So when you can dispense with the formalities quicker, you have a lot more time to dig deep on the stuff that will actually grow your business. So for me, it's not just a matter of not having the attention span to want to listen to 15 minutes of a mission statement, you know what I mean, that nobody cares about. For me, it's the fact that it's not those 15 minutes. It's the fact that a lot could have been done in those 15 minutes that maybe next week's phone call, when we have to do this again, will supercharge our productivity. Because as it goes right now, if you spend the first half hour with formalities that are useless, and then the next 15 minutes is when you're actually talking about what you could potentially do together, only to realize that you're out of time and now you have to reschedule this meeting, right? So now basically the first actual meeting where things will get done will be next week, not this week when was supposed to happen in this call. Now you have to wait till next week. But had you not done that and you had the really good call, man, did we get a lot accomplished. We decided that, yes, we're going to work together. We decided the scope of work we're each going to do. We've decided who's going to do what and when and how the money's going to flow. So now I'm going to meet with them next week. By next week, when we all come to the table, we're each going to have 5 action items done. So that, wow, this could be done in no time. As opposed to, we had a great discovery call. We're going to meet again next week to see what we could do together. Fuck. You know what could happen in a week? One of them could die in a week. And now this whole thing went to shit. So for me, it's like if everybody could have that stupid deck video, right, which costs nothing. When you think about how much money it could save you in the time of these calls and how much it impresses people that you're trying to impress, the amount of money it costs you to order one of these videos, it's not a lot. It's not like I have to send a film crew, right, to your place and to video everybody or whatever. This is stuff that I can mostly get done with stock images, right, and images that you send me. So we can pump one of these out quick, fast. But imagine if this became a trend. So now they get on the discovery call, you play your 3 minutes, I play my 3 minutes, and now we get right down to business. How much more efficient that would be, and how amazing would you feel if when you got off that discovery call, you could go to whoever you report to or your business partners and say, well, we had an amazing call. Not just that we decided to work together. I already have 3 action items to work on. They have a few action items to work on. And next week, we're going to have a fully fleshed proposal ready to run. Pretty fantastic, right? So my goal is to help my clients become more efficient in these sorts of negotiations and on these discovery calls. So when I heard my one client, for example, like I said, there's no way to condense when he's presenting himself these pitch decks in less than 15 minutes. But, he can be a little bit monotone when he speaks, and you could feel people tune out, right, and only listen on the parts that matter or whatever. And it's like, God, what a waste of time. So when I presented this to him, I said, look, instead of doing your usual intro, which is too long anyway, even though I know you say you can't shorten it, but I took your pitch deck and look what I made you in 2 minutes and 40 seconds. This will present everything you just tried to do in 15 minutes. I did better in a more entertaining way in 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Play this at the beginning of all your calls, and you're going to see how much quicker and more productive those calls become, because you're going to impress them right out the gate and give them everything they need to know that makes them feel qualified to make the decision on the spot. They're going to continue working with you, so the rest of that call can be productive and not just fishing you out or feeling you out. Now you can actually start talking business because you got the bullshit out of the way. And that way, even if they're being inefficient, when you're being so concise, it's going to prompt them to be concise. Even if they're still doing it the old school way, they're going to realize, oh, gee, these guys are really polished, and I've got my old school PowerPoint. I better skip a few slides. I actually saw that happen on the last meeting where the guy that was presenting for the other company realized, this is really long-winded, and he just started skipping slides on his own presentation, right? You could avoid all of that. Or, oh, gee, I covered this already when I was speaking ad lib, and so I'm going to skip this slide right now because I've already talked about that. Even that was a waste of time, right? So 2 minutes, 40 seconds. My clients' presentations are always stellar, always perfect. Nobody forgets to include anything. Everything's in there. And it's really impressive because it's very polished the way it's delivered. Far more than even my best CEO clients that are the best presenters can't do as good as these videos. Saves you so much time. So much time. So if you have any technical skill at all, I would urge you to try and turn your PowerPoint into an actual video. Just copy and paste the script and do it to a voiceover. Make sure there's a voiceover there, because what you don't want to be tempted to do is to hit pause and explain in between, right? So what you want that video to do it all. So the voiceover, everything, subtitles, everything, have it really, really well. Beautiful graphics, beautiful videos. It takes some time and make it really beautiful, but keep it under 3 minutes. And your people you're working with will be so grateful that you spared them the drudgery of having to listen to your boring mission statement and, and everything else, and all the team members on your team on that call that they're never going to remember anyway. You know what I mean? Spare them all of that and get right down to making money, which is the whole point of this exercise, right? Okay, everybody, so that's my tip for the day. Go make yourself a gorgeous introductory deck and knock everyone's socks off. Go get them. Thank you for joining us today at Gaining Ground. My name is Daniela Sagia. I would love to hear from you. Any topics that you would like me to cover, you can email me at DANIELA@blackrammedia.com. Have a great day, everybody. Go get them.